Well, hello, 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 and welcome. This is Oscar Hines. Welcome to Ninja Talks. Oh man, is this going to be a show? Because I am sandwiched between two dangerous, dangerous, persuasive, and powerful women.
Yes.
I am so excited to be able to join this trio. This is going to be a great conversation. Jen Colmeners, how are you? Ruffles have ridges.
You said dangerous. I just wanted to continue. Dangerous only in a good way.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You doing well?
Yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Excited for, we always have the most amazing conversations.
And this will certainly be one of them. And Miss Tracy James, how are you, Tracy?
I am fabulous.
Yes, and looking fabulous. I love seeing the ensemble. You know, there's a sophistication to a woman in pearls.
This is true.
I've been intimidated by that before.
Really, this was something that my grandmother instilled in me.
Yes.
And about the classic, feel of a pearl.
You're right.
And so ever since she gave me my first strand of pearls at my high school graduation, I wear pearls a lot.
I love it. And it does speak to a certain reverence that one might give someone that is wearing pearls. I do notice that. One of the rarest of all, and this is sort of a nice segue into our conversation, is the black pearl.
Mm-hmm.
They say 1 in every 10,000 pearls are black.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a rare find.
Yeah.
And we already know how pearls come about, right?
Right.
They start with that grain of sand that just irritates the bejeebers out of you.
Right.
But over time, it grows into something both valuable and precious.
Yes.
And I think sometimes, like a conversation that you guys were having as it relates to self-care and as it relates to really sustaining ourselves in this, whatever this is,
Yes.
I'm calling it cognitive dissonance. I think to me, that's an appropriate way of saying this crazy shit's gotta end at some point, right?
Right.
Yes.
But it's really a misinformation sort of centrifuge. And there's different sides that are going to keep putting in different opinions about different stuff. So the self-care piece becomes very important because we have to really be selective about what truths we're willing to accept.
Yes, absolutely.
So in the context of that, sort of now that we frame this a little bit, what do you think, and let me start with you, Tracy, what do you think has been sort of the greatest realization since 2020 began a year ago that you came into in this whole process?
Wow. I would say probably for me, it was about really being intentional with my time with my family and those I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so often we would put things off. I kept putting off, making a trip home and, setting that lunch date or that dinner date. And then when everything got shut down, it was when I realized, wait, hold on, my birthday's in a couple of weeks. We had plans.
My birthday's not going on hold.
Yeah, no, everything else is good.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was just that feeling of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an extrovert. I don't know if you could tell that. I'm a bit of an extrovert. So for me, that isolation really, I had to be very intentional because I felt myself going into a space of depression.
Wow.
And I had to try and pull myself out of it while at the same time trying to make things cool at home with my son. So I'm trying to act like, oh, mommy's great. It's great. This is no big deal. We're going to get through this next few weeks. It's going to be all right. Everything's going to be cool.
These next few weeks.
Yeah. And that's what I thought, because I'm thinking 6 weeks, we'll be back flowing. And, but then the reality set in for me, being the mom.
Right.
And I found myself emotional eating, and not working out,
Mhm,
and I saw
mhm.
myself start to gain weight.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
not something I'm used to. So
Right.
that further added on to the depression.
Right.
And so being intentional about talking to people, being intentional about making those connections with my family and with my friends helped pull me out of that space because I'm caring for my mom who's had a stroke a couple of years ago. So I felt
So you're a caretaker
I'm a
in
hair
addition
caretaker
to all of that.
and
Yeah.
intentional all of that.
Yeah,
So
that's a lot.
I had to be very careful about my movement because I needed to make sure I wasn't endangering her. It's one
Right.
thing if it's just me,
Mhm.
but if I'm endangering her, so for me the biggest thing was to not put things off.
Wow.
Don't put it off.
Don't put it off.
Let's
Don't put it
do
off.
it now.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important lesson, and of course we talk about being present, you know,
Yes.
all the time, and how that works. But before we leave what you just said, there's something that I need everybody like to extract from this, is that you're the head of your family in many respects. You're taking care of children and an aged parent. Your temperament and the tempo that you set, the pace that you set in that house, in that mood, in that energy, is the pace that everybody assumes. You know, when I was the boss in corporate America, I had 35 people reporting to me. If Oscar walked in pissed that day, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm pissed." They puckered up,
Oscar's
right?
having a bad day.
Oscar's
Everybody's
having a bad
having a bad
day.
day.
And I didn't have too many. I didn't
Yeah.
have too many, but there
Right.
were times where, like you, I was like 30 minutes, close my door,
Yeah.
and then I went, breathe, so I don't take somebody's head off.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it's very important in the context of what you just said to always remember, guys, if you are the caretaker, the head of your household, male or female, you have to make sure that you set the right temperament in that home, because your depression could be contagious.
Absolutely.
And that's huge. So
Yeah.
so Jen, what about you? What's sort of the biggest lesson you think that you
You just hit the nail on the head in so many aspects.
Mhm.
With it was like the end of March and I was depressed. It was like, okay, there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Everything's shut down on my birthday, girl. Everything's shut down on March 13th. So
beware the Ides of March.
Right? By March 27th, I was like, I am over this.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I really like
Mhm.
almost I can put a date on it that I started slipping. And it was I let the media get to me. I let conversations with friends get to me. I let just the weight of things get to me. And
You felt it.
I
You
did.
really
I mean,
did.
really physically, I can even, it was just daunting. And it was in reaching out and fostering those relationships and having the right kind of conversations, not the conversations with the people that were feeding the
Mhm.
negativity and
Right.
feeding the conspiracy
Exactly.
theories and the whatever. It was the people that were offering hope and let's do this together. And I went inward. I went inward in that time and I educated myself. I put priorities into place and I set boundaries.
Nice. Wow. I'm loving that. So I hope, folks, you are extracting some things from this conversation. This has been
Yes.
great so far. You are listening to the Edge Radio TV Network. We are here live at 415 West Gray in Midtown Bar and Grill. This is a cool day, but going to be a great day because we're going to be joined by one more fabulous personality. So we can have this party righteously fired up at the right level. When we come back, folks, we'll bring Leslie into the conversation. We are here with Tracy and Jen. This is Ninja Talks. I am excited to be here. We're going to be talking about how we transform our thinking and create the right mindset for what comes next. Stay tuned. Back in a moment.
When people stop talking to each other, society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
And we are back. This is Ninja Talks on the Edge Radio Network. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have now a full panel. I am so jazzed. Welcome, Leslie. It is good to have you join this conversation. We've been talking a little bit about how we sort of reinvent ourselves in the context of everything that's going on. And I know in your show, Jen, earlier, you were talking about the metamorphosis that people undergo. And a lot of times, we think about the struggle and, oh man, the struggle changes us. And some of you are maybe familiar with this, but I love this analogy just to kind of set the tone for a moment. When you have a butterfly, the word butterfly actually in Greek, it is psyche, or psyche is how it's pronounced, but psyche is literally the mind. And what's fascinating is, as you all know, when the caterpillar starts out and he's just eating grubs and just gaining weight, and he goes into this, chrysalis, or what we call a cocoon, he then transforms. But if while he's breaking out of that shell, if somebody comes up and they start peeling back the layers of the cocoon, the butterfly will fall to the ground and die. The only way it survives is when it pushes against the chrysalis, breaks the shell, and that very process is what unravels the wings, gets the blood circulation, and allows that butterfly to fly. So that which was once earthbound in the form of a caterpillar now has the entire world as its playground in the form of a butterfly. Yeah. And the word psyche or psyche is the mind. And the mind is exactly the same way if we free it, right? So when in the context of sort of that idea, what do you think is the single most important things that we can do to sort of free our mind? Because Leslie, in your case, you were sailing at this level, at this altitude, very successful in many respects, and then an expected, right? Yep. No one expects a major accident.
No.
And that changed.
I was hit by a car in a crosswalk, life. If anybody's curious about what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, I want you to give just a little brief synopsis of that, as opposed to what other time. Yeah.
At 7:45 in the morning, so
7:45
it wasn't like I was, drunk on the street or anything. I was walking between appointments, and a walk I made all the time, so it was very unexpected, for sure. So,
wow. And someone came out of nowhere, struck you, and damaged you significantly.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
I think the being put under pressure as the caterpillar is in his cocoon, and caterpillar needs to grow the strength to push out, so
from what I'm gathering from that story, is that sometimes that pressure is what you need to grow and to become what you're supposed to do. Now I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and I haven't really been doing much in the past couple of years, to be honest. But you know, sometimes it takes time. I guess you got to be open to
that struggle and that
new
process.
things. Yeah.
Because
it's not easy. So
because you know, it's funny when Jen, you're no, but you're exactly right. When Jen talks about the edgy entrepreneur, you get into this idea that you've got to be prepared to always be uncomfortable. And you're a business coach as well.
And
right?
here's something that's really interesting about the butterfly, since we're talking about that, and escaping from its chrysalis is also, it's completely changed DNA. So it's not the same. It's not a caterpillar. That whole body has melted away, and it has now become this butterfly. And not only has it become this butterfly and it needs the pressure to break out of that chrysalis, all the shit that it's been trapped in that chrysalis with is literally what gives it the power and the strength in its wings. So as it breaks free out of that chrysalis, it comes and its wings are all curled up and wrapped around it, and it kind of goes and pushes literally all of that shit that it's been surrounded with for all of this time that it's taken to build this beautiful body, and it pushes down into its wings.
I love it.
And that's where its strength
so
comes from.
So the butterfly's yelling, "Get me out of this shit!
I'm out of here! I can use this to my good. I am gonna be powerful. I am beautiful. I just have to get past this shit."
That's right. Well, no, it reminds me of like when Richard, you know, when he used to say in the Richard Pryor would say in the Chinese restaurant, they say, "Yo, order fried rice la mei," and they're very calm, and then he says, "I can't eat no more of this shit," and the guy said, "You order shit, you eat shit." So Tracy, so how do you get out of on that comment? Now that I've muddied the waters,
I'm always gonna go there.
Well, you know, when I think about the whole concept of everything that you've been through, who you were, all the shit, everything you've gone through, you pressing through and you getting through to the other side. I think about the whole concept of God uses it all for your good.
Yes.
What the enemy meant for evil, God means it for good. So when I look at my life and everything I've been through, and I've been through some stuff in my life, you know, dealing with being raped, dealing with an abortion, dealing with raising kids by myself, going through an abusive marriage and getting out. All of these different things helped make me who I am today. The woman that sits here would not be the woman I am had I not gone through all that. And it does require you just pressing through and saying, I can do this. I can get on the other side. There's something better. So when you make that decision that where you are right now is not where you want to be anymore, that's the most powerful moment for you. You don't allow yourself to think and talk yourself out of it. I don't know if you're familiar with Mel Robbins and
yes.
Her 5 count. Literally, if you
we talked about that.
That's how I get
count.
out of bed now.
Yeah.
I do too. I do the same thing. I lay there at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Blast off.
Yeah.
And literally that's what we have to do in that moment when we decide something must change. I must change. I need to move myself in a different direction. Immediately begin to take a step. It doesn't matter what that step is. Just take a step. Call the person that you know will encourage you and say, hey, I'm ready to make a change. That's step 1. That's action.
Yes.
And the more steps you take, that's where you build that strength to let it all go.
Yes. I love that. So it's this epiphany that we get when we find our voice, and once we find that, then we can roar with certainty. You know, I was listening to this guy.
I love to roar.
You do you? Oh well, in that case, bring it on.
Go for it.
Well, you know,
that is my analogy to get through fear. Is face everything and roar.
Well, you know what I like to do. So I related it to the motorcycle. You know, yeah, I've got a nice bike, right? And I said, purrs like a kitten and roars like a lion. And I really believe, like I talked to my kids many years ago about the way of the ninja. You know, a ninja will walk with a samurai right in its sheath and never ever pull it out to use it until the day that he has to defend the honor of someone he's been sworn to defend. Then he'll fight with his life. I think when we're true to our ideals like that, when we're true to our principles like that, that's transformative. But it only happens, it seems like, from pain. Are artists like tortured artists? What do you think, Leslie? The tortured artists.
Everybody has something that they have to go through in life that's going to bring them to this sort of brink of challenge, brink of realization, and it develops your mind. We're not talking about your, got to adapt your body, make it perfect so that you can. But I think it's a mental thing that we have to go through to process what life is. I mean, the human. What is it called? The human concept, or the human, to be a human is not easy,
Right.
I mean, you have to accept that you're someone new now. Like butterfly.
Well,
someone different, and not be afraid to embrace that.
Embrace it. No, but what I liked about the follow through on the analogy is that you are cellularly different, and we do transform. And so I think a part of it is redefining, right? Where we are now as compared to where we want to go. But what I love the most, and I think people like Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, they talk about how we're kind of living in a hologram right now. And this sounds a little bizarre when you say it, because if one of you smacked me in my face, I might enjoy. No, I'm just wait a minute, that didn't. No, if that happened, let me behave. I don't even have a drinking problem. But if you think about the physicality of this world, we view this as real. But if you look at vibrational frequencies and you look at this surface that we believe is solid because my hands can't go through it, when you look at it from a quantum physics standpoint, everything is vibrational frequencies and everything is moving. So everything is in flux. And when we put our attention on something, it changes the physical qualities of that thing. We've been able to prove that. So if we really think about that, then that means that we could be writers of our own script. And sometimes when we start to fantasize, if you will, about all the horrible things that can happen, and then we say, okay, I'm going to drown myself in this a gallon of Haagen-Dazs, then all of a sudden what's happening is the dopamine kicks in because we're eating some ice cream, we're feeling good, we're crying over our troubles, we're doing whatever we can to sort of ease that pain for a moment, but we are sedating ourselves into a physical calamity and an emotional tragedy. So in the context of all of that, if we think about life and reality sort of as this changing, shifting sand, what do you think the key is to getting it to flow right?
Present. Like really, really practicing being in the moment right now.
Yes.
Like I love you talk about it, the flow, and finding that flow. But I also, like this morning, I had a realization that like you have to be hungry like a wolf to really want that flow. Like you've got to crave it so bad that you're willing to let go and relax into it.
Yeah.
And that's such a
hard.
I'm like, you want to hit that ball and you want to nail it out of the park, but you don't hit that ball if you're trying too hard.
Right.
So
or romanticizing the
yes.
past.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
I think that's a huge thing, is that you can't be sitting there going, well, it used to be like this. No. When you make it the present,
it's like
this
Bruce
is what it is now.
Springsteen, glory days, right?
Yeah.
Glory days.
Yeah.
No,
Yes,
that's so
true.
that's so true. That's so true. But I love this idea of really being present though, because this is really all we have. This moment right now. If we look towards what's going to happen in the future, if we're fear-based, it's going to affect us. It'll affect us physiologically, emotionally, and it shifts the trajectory of what we create. I mean, how many times have we all said, I'm going to get a parking space right up front, and then there it is, or someone pulls right out, because we just have a fundamental belief that that's going to happen.
Right.
Right.
And then the opposite's been true. Oh, I'm never gonna find a parking space. Oh, my
And then you know.
my heel is gonna break today because it's a little wobbly. That's a woman
No,
thing.
I don't
All day you're
understand
tiptoeing
that.
through the tulips, right? Like, don't break.
Yeah.
There's no place for pessimism, period.
I know.
Yeah,
I
there you
well,
go.
and where you put your energy goes.
Yeah.
Where
No,
it's gonna flow
that's
to
a bad
you.
mistake.
Oh,
Yes.
for
absolutely. I mean, I think anytime we get too caught up in the past and too caught up in what the future can be, we miss out on the beauty of today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was the queen of what ifs. Well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if that doesn't happen? And what if, and I was drowning in a sea of what ifs.
Yeah.
And then because of the what ifs, I started making excuses for why I wasn't doing the things I needed to do today. And when I finally got tired of drowning in that sea of excuses, that was when I found the beauty of being intentional and being right here, right now. This
Yes.
moment is what I have. Tomorrow's not promised.
Right.
And you can't be saying, "Oh well, I'm going to feel better when
Right.
things will be better when I
Yes.
get this.
That's
Things will
right.
be better when I get that."
That's right.
You know.
That wishing, hoping, and praying.
Yes.
If nuts and candy butts, every day would be Christmas. Speaking of which,
One of my dad's favorite
let's
sayings.
take a quick break. You are listening to Ninja Talks. We'll be back in just a moment with this amazing panel.
Five, four, three, two, one, zero, ignition, liftoff.
Don't push me because I'm close to the edge.
I'm trying not to lose my head.
Hey, this is the Talk About Unity show where I bring the talk,
And I bring the unity,
and together we talk about unity.
unity.
Unity is what matters.
Come
And
on.
right now in our country, that's what we've got to do. So we do that here at Talk About Unity on the Edge Radio Network. Be with us every week.
It's going to be awesome. It always is. And I tell you what, the more we seek first to understand, then be understood, we make progress.
And we like to do that. And that's why everybody's on the brink. We love what we do at Edge Radio because everybody's on the edge. We bring them back from the edge and we bring the unity. So we're just glad the Edge Radio Network every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Talk About Unity because here at Edge Radio Network, truth still matters.
And we are back. This is Ninja Talks here on the Edge Radio Network. It is a pleasure to have this enlightened panel. I have been enjoying sort of our little back and forth here. Just during commercials, there's always some of the interesting conversation, right, that takes place. We're talking about getting over ourselves, right? Just for a moment, you got to get over yourself. Trying not to take yourself too seriously.
Oh God.
How challenging is that for you ladies? Not to take yourself too seriously.
Hi, I'm Tracy, and I'm a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser.
How long have you been in recovery?
I have been in recovery for the last 5 years. It gets better every day, but then I have some relapses here and there.
Right.
She has a high rate of recidivism.
It happens
Yeah.
because I have this thing in my head of what everything should be.
Yes.
Okay, and what Tracy is supposed to be, and how Tracy's supposed to look, how she's supposed to talk, how she's supposed to act, and the things she's supposed to be doing. But the problem is, okay, this is a joke I tell my friends. I said, I'm caught somewhere in between praise is what I do and blow the whistle. Okay, so if you don't know what blow the whistle is, go look it up. But literally, that's who I am. I'm that person who will pray with you, pray for you, but at the same time, there are moments where I will cuss you out. Just being honest and very real. And I used to be very uncomfortable about allowing that part of me. I actually named her that side of me, that crazy, that alter ego. I call her Stacy. So it works very well with my children. That I'm like, okay, don't make Stacy come out. And they
run to the hills.
They get exactly where I need them to be. But that's the reality, is that I was so afraid to embrace that part of myself. I named her and I separated her from me. But now this is just who I am. And I find myself getting more comfortable with being her. And it's okay.
It's okay. Well, let me ask you, ladies, because this is something that men are assertive if we say go to hell. But you are a quote unquote whatever if you say it, right? I mean, what's the deal with that?
I'm like, good. If that's what you want to call me.
So you're cool with
whatever. I mean, we all have language that we use to describe whatever it is. It doesn't, your version of it doesn't describe my version of it. So, if that's how you see it, then more power to you. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to take care of myself and this. This vibe.
That used to hurt my feelings. It used to hurt my feelings to be seen in that manner, to be the angry Black woman. And I'm a former dancer, former actor. I did a lot of musical theater. So I'm dramatic. I'm a little over the top.
Hands and all.
Right. So when I'm happy, I'm really happy. When I'm sad, I'm really sad. And when I'm angry, I'm really angry. So to be seen as that, it used to really hurt my feelings. And now I'm just like, okay, that's your perception and it's okay. I'm not gonna allow your perception to define who I am. Okay, I'm being passionate about what I am sharing with you. If you see that as anger, that's your perception. I'm not gonna take your feeling away from you, but I'm not gonna allow you to change who I am. And I used to kind of pull back.
So
and now you do so unapologetic.
Getting over yourself and accepting who you are, and getting over the people that have maybe put you in that box that you need to be on.
Or you've allowed
that put
them.
those expectations on you of who you should be or how you should live. That needs to not be a part of your conversation with yourself at all.
But there's some people kind of in line with what you're saying though. But there's some people that will not express that anger, that will keep Stacy suppressed until it's like a jack in the box that's building tension. And then all of a sudden they go ape shit one day and you're like, what just happened? So there's a passive aggression.
I used to kind of be like that in relationships. Like, where did that come from? You never, when I got mad, I got probably too mad, because I held back what I thought. Time after time. Okay, I'm gonna let him get away for this minute. I'm gonna let him get away for it for another minute, and then finally, kind of like third time,
Mount Vesuvius.
And I might have said, I don't like it when you do that. I don't really like that. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I told you I didn't like that. Right? You gotta stop. Anyway, I'm just saying.
No, but you're
and
right.
it can flare up over little things.
Well, and I think so much of that goes back to what Tracy was saying, is that when you own it and you allow it to appear, then it doesn't explode. Like, you're releasing that valve along the way so that, one, you're learning how to harmonize with that person. I like that alter ego, whichever one it is that day. But yes, and allowing and owning who you are, letting go of who that was, letting go of that's who you wanted me to be, and I'm not that person, and this is really how I feel. Take it or leave it, man.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, surrender signifies transcendence. In many cases, when we do have this control that we try to hold on to, it always just goes south eventually because, like you were saying, a recovering control perfectionist. I think whenever somebody has that as a reflection in the mirror, they're never ever satisfied. It's never good enough. And to the extent that that happens, life becomes a miserable series of mishaps. And that unfortunately is frustrating. You know, I think on the other end, you have this ability to speak your truth and to be able to say at the beginning, not I'm going to let them get away with that, but you know what? That sucked. Hey, can I talk to you for a moment? So that we don't have an altercation where I become Satan. No. It's like, you know, just show them the horns a little bit and say, hey, I will kick your ass. So just back down on this, right? And then all of a sudden, so you set the expectations. And when you do, it starts to be a lot less stress because we're managing it a little bit differently.
Yeah. A friend of mine describes it in this manner that I'm saved, but God let me keep a little bit of my gangster to protect those he's called me to protect.
Yeah.
So he's like, if Jesus can flip over tables, don't think I won't.
Nice.
And it goes down to that thing of sometimes people assume because you don't say anything, they take that kindness that I didn't go off on you.
Right.
As a sign of weakness, but that's not what it is. Oftentimes it's about, I'm not trying to get into a confrontation with you. I'm trying to avoid that, but you're hurting me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And eventually I'm going to act out. So now I've learned not to allow the volcano to erupt and to just say, hey, ouch.
Yeah.
That hurt.
Yes.
Say it when it first happens.
That's right.
What did they say? You teach people how to treat you?
Yep. Yes.
And that's those feeling words we were talking about. When you
Yeah.
tell somebody and you say the word hurt,
Mhm.
it has gravity
Yes.
in it. You know, it should mean something to them if they care.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if
Right.
it doesn't,
And that's a key component, if they care. If you're
Right.
dealing with a narcissist,
yeah.
And
Right.
and you have
Absolutely.
to be clear on if you are dealing with a narcissist or if you are dealing with somebody with some pathological behavior. You know, if you can spot that close up front, then you know whether you want them in your orbit. You know, my thing's simple. If people can't survive in my orbit if they're a certain way, and I make it very clear, like early on, like, no, I'm not going to listen to you complain about negative bullshit to me because I don't give a damn.
But back to the butterfly.
Now, I don't have to be
needed
an
that.
asshole, but they'll
You
get it.
needed
Yeah.
a negative experience with someone like that to bring you to
Yes.
the point where you can say, I know, I recognize it, I see it, I don't want that in my life. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, I feel like that's all part of it, right?
It's the education.
Yeah.
What is it? Abraham Hicks calls it contrast.
Contrast.
Like you need the
Yeah.
contrast because it's the yin and the yang. When you
That's
don't
right.
have the contrast or the sandpaper moments, then you're not going to get smoothed out. It's just
Yeah.
sail smooth and be in that flow.
The man born in darkness will never know light because he's only known dark.
Right.
If you have to have contrast, you know, at 12 years old, I read a book called The Precepts of the I Ching and the Concepts of Yin and Yang. And it talked about the polarity and opposition of everything in the world. And it sort of shaped my perspective, like as a really young kid, that, you know what, this is the dichotomy. There's good, there's bad, there's happy, there's sad. You know, that's why I like that Simon and Garfunkel, to everything turn.
Yeah.
I'm totally dating I'm the oldest cat up here.
That's a great song.
Oh, my God.
I mentioned the Brady Bunch on an earlier show.
You did. But, you know.
It's all right.
It was
But it's-
reruns in
but
my
it's
defense.
just, but it's just like reruns, whatever. You know, we watched them together, Jen. No, but it goes back to the biblical principle because that's what he's quoting: a time to rejoice and a time to cry, a time to live and a time to die. And so, if we become fearful of what that next thing is going to be, then how do we handle this thing that's happening right now?
Yeah.
And even with the people we love.
Well, that knowledge is such power, right? To know that it's not always going to be like bad, you know, to realize that it's something that's going to come of this, you know, you kind of have to have that knowledge to live through that piece, you know, to say to yourself, I mean, that it's not going to be you know, I'm not going to be hurt forever, you know,
Right.
I'm not going to be
This
Yeah.
too shall pass.
You totally, exactly.
Something new
This
is
too shall
coming.
pass.
You know, something new is coming, and
This is making me who I am to become.
absolutely.
In those moments though of despair, you don't see. It's really hard.
Well,
It's hard
you know,
to see.
but you know
It is.
what I did was I adopted. There's a Russian proverb that says, "In times of peace, prepare for war," and when you're in despair, you're in war. But one of the things that I loved is this analogy that this is not happening to me, this is happening for me.
Mm.
How is this happening for me?
Right.
Because when you ask the universe that question, how's this happening for me? The universe loves questions because it gives you answers. It's like, oh, this is happening for you because you're about to walk into somebody in the grocery store and they're going to offer you a contract.
Mine doesn't
Well,
happen
really?
exactly
Oh,
in
yours-
that voice.
Oh,
but
really?
The voice I hear is a little different.
The voice is like, you moron! If you would have just listened to me, you know. But that's the voice we gotta suppress. That one, that negative voice that started when we were just zygotes in our parents' wombs.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't touch that.
Yeah.
Don't touch that.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is that thing of as kids is something that I was looking at when I was working on my first book, was that when with your children, if the only thing they ever hear from you is don't,
Mm-hmm.
how do they know what the do is?
Yeah.
And you get used to being told, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. So one of the things I tried to do with my second son, my first son, bless his heart.
That's
I
what
was
grace is
18.
for.
I didn't know what I was doing. But with my second son, one of the things I've tried to do is try to balance the don'ts
Mhm.
and the do's. So it's not just saying, don't touch that. I'm also going to explain why you don't need to touch that, but here's your alternative. And for him, because of the way his mind works, he's very logical. He's that kid that goes, well, why do I have to do that? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Logically, it should go X, Y, Z.
Sure.
For him, that's how his brain works. So I have to explain the whys.
Mm-hmm.
And so often what we do is we get so caught up in what could happen, what might happen, that we forget, why am I feeling this way right now in this moment? What's causing me to feel this way? Is that voice actually my voice, or is this the voice of someone who planted seeds of negativity into me?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be
But
able to tell the difference.
That awareness is hard when you're in the moment because you're just in the mire. You know, sometimes you can't see the picture because you're in the frame. And that's hard. So what you're saying is crucial. I think in terms of an actual coping mechanism, when you can meditate and be in a moment of peace, that's when you give yourself the tools, hopefully, to be able to get out of the quagmire, because it's not always easy.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and I will say this, and on behalf of your gender, you know, I think men have it. I don't think men have it easier. We really do. Ladies in general, you guys have a lot on your plate, not just children, but also the societal responsibilities that are heaped upon you. And then you've got the male energy that sometimes encroaches on your freedoms. Like, you're like, hey, dude, I'm just here to do a job, man. Don't be massaging my shoulders. What the, you know?
There's some expectations that I think women are, you know, we don't have to, but not, we have look a certain way, you know, there's definitely that. But I think men have always been told to hide their feelings too. And that's a big thing. I've you know, women have been, oh, it's okay, you know, you can cry. Men, it's like, oh, don't cry, you're not being manly.
You're not a
That's
real
a
man.
child, you know, that's a children's thing. So there's different expectations in that respect.
Well, you know, that I think the way that I finally viewed it in my mature adult life was that we have both energies, all of us. You guys have masculine energy and feminine energy. Men have masculine energy and feminine energy. Doesn't make them gay or homosexual. Not that that's a bad thing.
The yin and the yang that we're talking about.
It's totally the yin
Right.
and yang. And when you can understand that, then I could be sensitive with my son and say, hey, I know that she hurt you, but you know, you're gonna find someone better than her, bud. If you think about it, you can't do crazy all your life with that. And maybe that's what he needed to hear in that moment. And you know, you can be soft with people And then at other times you can be firm with them, get your head out your butt and go to work. So that's the energy, the yin and yang. Yeah.
And knowing when to utilize that energy. Early on, when I first started my first business, I was in this space of, oh, thank you so much for hiring me. And, oh, this is going to be so awesome. I'm really looking forward to working with you. Mm-hmm. When I came in that way, men tended to treat me differently.
Yeah.
They got very comfortable with me and would try to cross the lines between personal and business. Mm. I've learned now that my approach needs to be different. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm going to do XYZ for your company. I will appreciate your support as I begin to gather the information. I come in a different space. I still say thank you for the opportunity, but it's all in my tone and how I present myself and positioning myself so that I can be seen as the professional that I am. Mm-hmm. And when you begin to set those boundaries, people tend to be less likely to try to cross those boundaries with you. And I had a lot of that early on in my career because I didn't understand how to deal with it.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think so much of that, and it's not just women, I mean, men too. It's getting good at your craft and understanding what your calling is and where your courage comes from. And when you can speak from that courage and that purpose and that knowledge within, you're automatically, you're brighter, you're going to set that boundary and set the tone for how you're going to be communicated with as well. Mm-hmm. And it is, women, I think we get like, oh, she's cute or she's funny or whatever. That's just what we know because that is what we are. That is our feminine energy. So how do we level that out and own that feminine energy so that we can be women in the workforce and in this world?
Well, I remember, I mean, you talk about the feminine energy. I have an older daughter who got into a position where she was the boss and there were 40-year-old men that were all around her. And she was demure and soft-spoken, and they were just like, we're going to do this, or we'll see you later, that kind of stuff. But male chauvinist, she was in Georgia, too. And it was like, not that that's a bad thing or good thing. I love Georgia. Hey, Atlanta, peace, man.
Oh, that's the only other place I've ever lived.
Yeah, no, it's cool. But she was going through this, and then I said, sweetheart, how much space are you taking up in that room? Because if you're apologizing for the oxygen that you're breathing in that room, you already lost when you walked in.
I love that. How much space are you taking up in that room?
I mean, and we were talking about body language before, but I'll do my big, when I'm in a meeting, I'm like, bam, okay, now I'm taking up this room because I'm here now. And I'm not going to back off because you don't agree with me or you don't agree with me. But it's like a physical puffing up, if you will, like a puffer fish. And it's an intimidation thing. But men do that intrinsically because we are acclimated, accustomed to this competitive space.
Right.
Women will tend to defer, and to some degree that's natural. It's not a bad thing, but to another degree it can be to your detriment, especially in a business situation like you were talking about, Tracy.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to be able to not shirk back.
Yeah.
And really stand confident. And you're right about the thing with the body language. I didn't believe it at first. I'm going to be honest. The whole thing of the
You didn't read my book.
The Wonder Woman. I didn't believe that early on when they started talking about, stand like Wonder Woman. And I'm like, I grew up loving Wonder Woman. Sure, I'll stand like Wonder Woman.
Where's my last
and so I didn't understand, but it does. It lifts you in a manner. So I started doing that before I would step on a stage to speak, before I would step in front of a group to do training. And it changed the whole energy.
That's the
commanding respect.
That's the perfect teaser for a conversation that we could probably continue.
For sure.
But unfortunately, we are out of time because what you're talking about is neuro-linguistic programming, where you change your physiology, changes your mental state, and therefore you are more powerful. But before we leave, Tracy, how do folks get connected to you?
You can connect with me anywhere on social media. I'm at I am Tracy L. James. That Tracy is TRACIE. So you can catch me on my website, tracyljames.com.
TracyLJames.com.
I know,
Thank you
I've been
so
seeing her.
much. This is, well, the L is for lovely. I could have gone so many places with that. No. All of which would have been positive because I absolutely love this lady. She's done some amazing work, and we are looking forward to further conversations. Leslie, thank you for joining us
You're
again.
welcome.
This was great. I love your perspective. So, it's good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the fabulous Miss Jen Colmeners. Yes. Well, every Thursday at 10 a.m., the Edgy Entrepreneur will
Yes.
be in the house. Today was an
Yes.
amazing conversation, and we'll continue to support and love that
Yes,
information.
that's beautiful.
If you're out there, folks, and you want to join this panel, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a thought leader, we're interested in hearing from you. So drop us a line at edgeradio20@gmail.com. That's edgeradio20@gmail.com. Let's talk a little bit about that. This has been a great show, ladies.
This has been
I
fun.
absolutely
Super fun.
love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. You've been watching the Edge Radio Network. This is Ninja Communications. We'll see you again next week.